I'm Myriam.
And I'm Elyse. Two friends bound by the love of books.
Taking on the world one chapter at a time. This is the Book Bound Besties podcast.
Hey, Book Bound Besties.
Hey, Book Bound Besties.
Welcome to another episode of the Book Bound Besties podcast.
Yeah, unfortunately, today's episode is not the episode you are likely expecting. Summer has just been a little crazy for us. I've been under the weather quite a bit. So we figured we'd release on our feed an episode that we recorded a few months ago now, Elyse?
It was a while ago, yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. It's with our friends of the pod, the House of Wind podcast, where we had an ACOMF versus ACOSF showdown.
So if you haven't read ACOTAR yet, we're really sorry. Like, this episode's not really going to be for you, but hopefully some of you have, because the episode is fantastic. Like, the conversations that happened were so good and so exciting.
This is also your sign. If you have not read it yet, read it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are you doing?
Yeah, seriously. How did you find us if you haven't read ACOTAR yet?
With the amount we talk about ACOTAR on the podcast already, like...
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
But before we get into it, what have you been reading? What have you been up to?
So one of the upsides of not feeling well is that I've been spending a lot of time horizontal on my couch with my e-reader in my hands. So I've been reading quite a bit. I read Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden, I think.
I haven't heard of it.
Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. It's really interesting. It follows this girl in the kingdom of Amber. So there's 7 kingdoms for like 7 gems. And she ends up having to go to the Onyx kingdom because like something her brother did anyway. And she's got these healing powers. So she basically trades her brother's freedom for her healing ability to be used by the Onyx soldiers and whatever. And it just follows that. And it's got a really interesting magic system. There's a broody male main character. We love that.
We do.
And yeah, so I did the audiobook, and I'm doing the audiobook for the second book, which is called A Promise of Peridot. I like it. The second one is a dual narration, which is fun. And I also finished reading Daughter of No Worlds. And that one is, I've got a new book boyfriend for you. I've got a new series, a new world for you. It is great. It's nice because it's only a 3-book series, so it's not overwhelming. That magic system is really, really cool. There's people who have, Valtane are people with internal magic, and Solari are people with external magic. Okay. So there's like 2 types of magic wielders, but then there's also non-magic wielders. There's politics, there's drama. The main character starts off as a slave. It's really, really good. I really liked it. It's super interesting. So I'm reading the second one of that one too. I'm juggling a lot of books right now because I have nothing else to do with my time.
I mean, hey, at least you're doing something productive and fun with your time. So,
yeah,
I'm
drowning my reality in fantasy worlds.
I finished Queen of Shadows. And let me tell you, this book, holy shit, guys. Like, I literally out loud, like, was gasping and like, oh my God. And the like screaming, and just, it was such a thrilling adventure. I loved it so much. I mean, I've enjoyed Throne of Glass like in its entirety this far, but Queen of Shadows was just chef's kiss, like next level. It was so good. Oh man, it's like she took all the characters who were already badass and like made them even more badass, if that was even possible. Like, it was so good. It was so good. And now I have to do the tandem read, and I'm really intimidated because like when you just stack the 2 books together, you're like, well, this is a lot of pages. But I've tabbed my books and I color coordinated them, and they're really cute because I definitely have a brain that would like keep forgetting what I was supposed to read. So I had to mark it very clearly or I would mess up the tandem order. Yeah,
but it's not a big deal if you do. I did. A few times I got carried away in one book or the other, and all you have to do is just catch up and find yourself where you're supposed to be in the guide that I sent you, which we can have in the show notes. But in reality, it's really a very loose guide. You don't have to follow it to the letter as long as you don't read the epilogue of Tower of Dawn before finishing Empire of Storms. You're fine.
I will not. I mean, even the epilogue is like named differently, so it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. It's a very clear delineation of like, do not read past here.
Pretty much, yeah. So, No, I'm super excited for you. And I just think that series builds and builds and builds in the best way. So every time you're like, oh, I loved this one, I was like, just you wait till the next.
That's cool. Yeah. I finished the audiobook of the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series.
Oh, I didn't know there was another one.
There's 3 and like a mini novella pre-book. Nice. That's a word. That's how you call that. But it was great. It was honestly just as good as the first one. And I felt it was like almost more high stakes than the first one. So it was really, really good.
That's high praise.
Yeah. And like I told you about the first one, it's just like the way it's recorded, because she's doing interviews and she's talking to different people and you have the different voices. It just feels like you're like part of this actual investigation. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah. It makes it a really immersive experience.
Yeah, exactly. For people who enjoy murder investigations, you know, and it is YA. So it's like pretty easy to follow and read, although it's dark.
We don't mind dark.
We don't mind dark. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, fair enough. You know? Fair enough.
And yeah, that's it. I think
we don't need to keep everyone any longer from our really exciting and fun episode. I'm just thrilled to put this out there. And I'm so grateful for the friendship that we've established with Hannah and Amber. And if you guys enjoyed this conversation, I really recommend that you head over to their podcast, give them a follow. They have just finished talking about the entire ACOTAR series. They go through ACOTAR chapter by chapter or a couple chapters at a time, kind of like us. And they are about to embark, or they will have embarked at this point, on Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
Which is really fun because I have not found any other podcast that goes chapter by chapter through Throne of Glass. Because it's an 8-book series, it's a huge undertaking. It's a big project, but I think that they're going to do a great job.
Yeah. They do talk about the series or the Massverse in its entirety, but they're really good about like saying spoiler for the Massverse, so you could skip ahead or whatever, which is what I've had to do because I'm not done the Massverse, but I really enjoy listening to them. Soon, working my way. Yeah. I feel like I'm past the halfway point now, no?
Oh yeah, I think you'll be through the Massverse before the year is up.
Including Crescent City?
I think so.
We'll see.
I think so. We're only July.
That's true.
Well,
it's true.
Almost August.
Well, right, I've got time.
You've got time.
Anyway, without further ado, enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome to the ACOMF ACOSIF Showdown, where we are going to be tallying up points in different categories to see if individually which one our favorite book is, and overall, who is the winner, ACOMF or ACOSIF. And to get us started, we're going to each do a little pitch about why we choose the book we choose and why we love it. Okay? Is everybody ready?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. Elyse, you're going to go first. What's your book?
Okay. I'm going to preface this by saying that I've only read them once. I've read the whole series once. You guys are more experienced than me. But I am going to go in and say Silver Flames is my favorite. Because, do we have a timer? Like an actual timer?
I can set a timer.
I'll set one so I can see it. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay, Silver Flames is my favorite because... Okay. Are we ready?
We're ready. Yes, super ready. My love, we're ready when you are.
Silver Flames is my favorite because Cassian. But okay, I'm going to start with the sad. I think the mental health journey is really awful and really important because it depicts the real side of like the ugly side of depression and the ups and downs and the one step forward, two steps back. And I think she did a great job. But then also you have Cassian, who's just like incredible and amazing. And you have these female friendships that are incredible and amazing. And the journey that we take is just one for the ages. And that is 30 seconds. Whew. That's fast, guys.
Wow, that went
so
quick.
fast.
That went quick. I need to reevaluate.
That goes by really fast. Man, you guys need to get your auctioneer voices going.
Yeah, I'm going to have to talk so fast.
Well, you're up next, Myriam.
I'm up next? Okay.
You're up next.
All right, I'm starting my timer. Okay. So this is purely on vibes. This is very much like my unhinged book reviews where I tell you little to nothing about the book and just about how it makes me feel. And this book, ACOMF, in case, whatever, I'm an ACOMF girly, this book had me levitating. I also read it on my honeymoon, so I have some like very fond memories attached to the book. But I'm just going to use words. Angst, drama, quotability, flirting, the change in scenery, like the summer court, the intrigue, the will they, won't they, the slow burn, the end scene, chapter 54 to 55. And I rest my case.
Oh my gosh. Beautiful.
Mic drop.
That was amazing.
I did write it down because I was just like, I need to make this tight because I need to sell why ACOMF is better.
Yeah, because 30 seconds goes fast. Holy
yeah, it went
cow.
really fast.
Okay, I'm going to set myself a timer because I'm going to go next. That way we flip-flop each book. So hang on, 30 seconds. Oh gosh, why am I sweating?
It makes you nervous.
Listen.
Like,
we're just a bunch of sweaty girls.
Look at yeah, listen, we always talk about in the podcast how we're just sweaty people unite, you know, it's normal, girls. It's fine. This is why deodorant was created. Okay. Here we go. Okay. And perfect. My book that I choose, just like Elyse, is Silver Flames. And here's why. Number one, like she said, Cassian, the things that come out of this man's mouth actually melt me. Number two, female friendship. One of my favorite things is A, found family, which Nessa finds with the Valkyries, and B, female friendship. I think it's so important, especially for us as women. And lastly, I just think overall the epic journey and then the world building and connections that take place in this book are just beautiful. Done. Oh my gosh.
Well said.
That was so calm.
Oh my God.
I love it.
I feel like I was like a little squirrel.
It's like you know, people can look calm on the inside, but inside they're like, that's me, like 24/7.
Like the little ducks swimming, like a duck looks calm and their little feet are like,
under the water. My feet were going.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, beautiful Amber, you are next.
Ready? Okay, I chose ACOMF just like Myriam because of the book. The feeling that this book gives me. And it's not something that can be described. It's like almost nostalgic for me. The feeling that you're like sitting right there with the inner circle, finally surrounded by your found family. And that's why I love this book. And it's not just the found family, but the emotional depth of Rhys and Farah's relationship, the history that's uncovered, Rhys's truth, the entire journey. And ultimately, it's just that yummy feeling. And if you know, you know.
That was perfect. Wow, guys, we did a really good job. I'm sold on both these books. Do we need to debate it? I don't know.
We better do it just in case.
We should debate it. So just so you guys know, this is how we're going to grade everything. We're going to go on a 5-star rating system. Each star is worth 1 point. Everyone will be awarding their stars for each book in 5 different categories. Those categories being training, friendships, personal growth, romance, and sex. As we have talked about before we started recording, romance and sex are 2 very different things, especially when it comes to these 2 books. So we will be rating all of these individually, and we're going to tally up for each person and see if what we said was our favorite book in the beginning is actually literally and statistically our favorite book, or if our friends can kind of change our opinions a little bit. And then we're also going to see overall which book was the winner. All right, you guys ready?
I am not ready for my opinion to be changed. It's just...
I'm kind of with you. I'm with you.
Like, I don't care I'm an accountant. I don't care what the numbers say. I'm sticking to my guns.
You are SpongeBob. Firmly grasp it. Or Patrick and SpongeBob.
Yeah.
That's you and I. We're like, firmly grasp it. You just like, we're holding on to our feelings, and we'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
I'm open to it because I've...
Sorry.
You go ahead.
These books are just so close for me. Like, I say Silver Flames, but like by a hair, you know, like it. So I don't know. I don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I've been humbled on our podcast of just like going through Silver Flames and being like, wait, but we're just now getting into the good stuff on the pod. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is why it's my favorite, actually. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with the category of training, and you can kind of feel free to talk about like why you chose the stars that you choose. Does anybody want to go first for this one?
I guess I can go first. I'm not going to give my star rating. I want to like talk about it a little bit first, because I feel like hearing all of you and what you say may sway what I say. But I guess specifically when I think of training, I think of Feyre's journey in Mist and Fury and just like kind of discovering her powers. And that journey was just absolutely wild. And although there's like training going on in all different aspects of that book, because they're constantly on the brink of something really bad and scary happening, you know, there's just always like Feyre is always perpetually growing in the realm of that training. But the same can be said for Silver Flames, and maybe even more so as an ACOMF girly, maybe even more so, because I feel like training for Nesta is what facilitates her growth more than anything else. And I have some mad respect for that.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there and be like, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of very interesting training and a lot of really emotional moments, like in ACOMF, where you have Cassian and Feyre, and then Rhys comes in and with his like night powers, like he protects her and lets her like have her moment. But to me, when I think of training, I immediately think of ACOSF. It's just like the hugest chunk of that book. So much happens in the training ring. So much is around that, like keep extending your hand. All of that book and that pivotal, like the Elyse, what's the élément déclencheur?
Starting point, trigger point. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the trigger point.
Triggering moment.
Yeah.
Like turning point.
The triggering moment. Yeah. To Nesta's like change is in the training ring, like you were saying.
If we look at like ACOMF though, one of the coolest things about like Feyre's training and everything is like she is developing a power that's like unseen in this world. No one has ever had all this power from all these different types of powers. So like that, from that point of view, it is really cool. But then the Silver Flames is just, it's so tied to the mental health journey, to the found family journey. Like the training aspect is such a big portion of the book that it's like very touching.
Yeah, I think that in Mist and Fury, you're right. The fact that Feyre is training her powers, I think, is really cool, because for most of the book for Silver Flames, Nesta is like denying her powers. So we don't really get a lot of that. But I do agree. I think Gwen and Emery and that whole trio, and in general, that the training is also tied to the priestesses kind of gaining their confidence and their lives back, really just gives it a whole nother level compared to just Feyre and her journey, which I still love her journey. And I also love that it facilitated more of a connection between her and Rhys. And then also we talked about on the pod on our end of like how her and Cassian also got to have a connection. And the moment that Feyre and Cassian share when she has the breakdown over Tamlin happened because she was training with him. And so I love both of them, but I agree. When I think of training, I think of Silver Flames and the Valkyries.
I would say one little extra tidbit for ACOMF is Feyre isn't just training her powers. I mean, Rhys and Feyre are she's kind of learning how to become High Lady at the same time. Like that is also like part of her training, is not just the physicality of it or the powers. It is like also like she learned how to read and she learned how to run a court and she like learned all of these things about this entire new literal world. So it like her training is a lot more intellectual, I feel like, and just like big picture because she needs to, which is really fascinating. And then comes into play significantly as the series goes on, which I find very interesting. But I mean, like you all said, it just doesn't quite have, it doesn't pack the punch like Nesta's training does.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good point, though, because I wasn't really looking at it too much from the learning to read perspective and like the more intellectual, but you're absolutely right. Like the fact that she is learning, she's in a new world, she's learning about the court system. She goes to bat for a whole new world that she isn't really, she's just now becoming a part of. Like that's a huge arc.
Mm-hmm. And she uses her feminine wiles with Tarquin. I think like that's also a nice little element there, because not only like you're saying, Amber, she's got the like physical, the mental, but also like not in like the icky way. I know it can sound really icky, but it's also that like emotional kind of manipulation that comes sometimes with, especially being part of the Night Court, with like the Night Court's persona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being Rhys's mate, I feel like it's just like, she possesses that in her somewhere. She has to.
They're equals.
Yes, in every way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, what are we thinking for ratings?
Myriam, why don't you go first since you already have an idea?
Okay, well, I think they're both on the high end of the spectrum. I think there's no arguing that, like just this conversation has proven it. I would say ACOSF is 5 on 5 for training. There's no notes. The training is just gorgeous. There's flirting, there's tension, there's, like we've all been saying, the found family, the confidence, the mental health. Literally, we're getting it from all sides. So ACOSF, 5 on 5. Because ACOMF, I just can't put it on that same level. I'm giving them 4 on 5. I'm giving it 4 on 5 stars.
I'm going to say my ratings are the same. I think Silver Flames is 5 out of 5 for me, and Miss and Fury is very close with 4 stars.
I'm inclined to agree. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with training for Miss and Fury, but you guys have reminded me how incredible that journey is too. So 4 for Miss and Fury and 5 for Silver Flames.
Yeah, I would agree. Originally, I shocked myself by saying this. Originally, I was going to say 3 for ACOMF, but I do think that kind of like, I do think that intellectual aspect of it really bumped it up to 4. But okay, keep this in mind. I feel like this is important. When you rate a book on Goodreads, are you the kind of person that always veers towards a 4 or 5, regardless of what the book is like? Because if you're that kind of person, it makes sense, right? If you're always going to kind of give, especially with your favorite books, the benefit of the doubt. I am very much like I will give a 5-star to my favorite books. And that's it. No other books, like, unless you are a book that I read in a comfort and I will reread annually because I love it so much. That's the only time I will give a book 5 stars. Most other books I give 4 stars. But
really? Have you ever given a book 1 or 2 stars?
No, because I don't finish books. I won't finish it.
Okay.
So I won't, if I don't finish it, I can't rate it. I don't want to rate it. But if I feel like it's going in the 1 or 2 star direction, that's a no-go for me. I won't finish it.
Yeah, same. Because I feel at that point, I'm just like, I'm not the audience for this. Like, hopefully they find their audience, and I don't want to go there, you know?
Yes. I feel like I've given quite a few 3s, though. But I would say a vast majority 4s. But so I agree. 4 and 5.
4 and 5. All right. That wraps up training. Now we're going to move on to friendships.
Oh, my favorite. My favorite.
Friends. Friends / I would like to expand this, though, a little bit. Friends / like found family. You know, encompasses, I feel like, this topic.
Okay, I'm gonna say this right off the bat. They both get 5s. And you can't convince me otherwise. The found family in these books is exquisite. And it's the inner circle.
I have to push back on you, Amber.
Yeah?
I have to push back on you. Keep going, but I'm going to push back.
Yeah. And I feel like it's isolated in ACOMF. It's 5 out of 5, everything about it. Rhys and Farrah's friendship is beautiful. The inner circle is beautiful. I love all of it. Silver Flames, I am obsessed with the Valkyries. Obsessed. It is the reason that one of the 2 reasons that I really enjoy Silver Flames. And I think the Valkyries are so special and so unique, and I just see them as found family. Now, if we would have just said friends and not included found family, I don't think I'd give Silver Flames 5. Yeah. Because I feel like the Valkyries aren't just friends. The Valkyries are found family. They're found family.
They're sisters. Yeah.
I'm shook.
What's your pushback? I want to hear.
Okay, okay, so I completely agree about the whole found family thing. I actually think the inner circle is more found family, and they have more of a found family dynamic than the Valkyries. The Valkyries, I feel like, are like the closest of friends who are also family, whereas the inner circle are like more family than friends. Like they are friends, but it's the vibe that you get is of like just a really close, tight-knit family. I think that in Silver Flames and with the Valkyries in particular, you're getting a depth to the friendship that you actually don't get this to the same degree with the inner circle. You have these beautiful moments and these moments of connection and these moments of tenderness and vulnerability, but you don't have the degree of true nakedness that you have with the Valkyries, where like when they're on Ramiel and they're telling each other their like deepest, darkest secrets and the reasons they think that they're unlovable. Like you just don't have that with the inner circle. You have complete and total acceptance and you have so much love and support. But I feel like those like moments of vulnerability, I mean, you get a little bit of Cassian's story, but like not really. You don't really get anything from Az. More you only get in ACOWAR. Amren, we know nothing about. So I feel like, yes, if we're putting Rhys in there, that friendship is absolutely gorgeous. But if you're looking at it on a whole, and I'm an ACOMF girly, I can't give it to it. I can't give it 5 stars.
You make a really good point because I didn't think about, it's so hard to like take these books and just separate them into one thing because in my head, like ACOWAR and ACOMF kind of like blend together. So the feelings I have from the inner circle, a lot of that does bleed in from ACOWAR. But you're right. I guess we don't really get a lot of those stories. I think more opens up a little bit in ACOMF, right?
Yeah, I think she said something about like when she got her period, like she was powerful. They married her off to Eris, or were trying to marry her off to Eris.
I have a question. Should we should we add another category? Should we go friendships and found family? Should we add one more? Would that add a little bit more like spice to life with our rating system? What do you think, Elyse?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if we want to separate it, I mean, I think in a lot of ways it is very tied together. That's tough. Yeah, we could separate it because it will change things. I think it'll change things.
I think it will too.
Okay, so let's
the reason I say that is because Myriam, you got me. I agree. I think the found family is beautiful, but the friendship, I'm with you. I think an ACOMF isn't quite there. And just kind of thinking, I do think that like the friendships with the Valkyries is so intense that it almost feels like found family. But just because you're, how do I say this? Just because you're like super, super close with someone and you're like the best friends that you ever can be, you can still be best friends and family, but I would still label them as like more friends. Like I would label them friends first over sisters.
Yeah. I think there's definitely more of a family vibe with the inner circle than there is with the Valkyries. But
I think going into ACOMF, like I liked Reese and because I liked his dark side and I was like, oh, he's mysterious and stuff. But I like fell for Reese meeting the inner circle because there's something about seeing somebody interact with their best friends and their dynamic is just so beautiful. Like their friendship that this group has is so beautiful. And the way they're just so open with each other and the way they kind of bug each other, it just felt so right and natural that first moment where we're like overhearing their banter, I was just like, oh my God, I'm all in. Like, I love Reese. I'm so happy to meet his friends. Like, and at that point, like, you know, next to nothing about them, but there's something so warm about that group of people that I was like instantly, I'm like in love.
Yeah, you can tell that they've really been through a lot together. And I like that kind of the way you say it doesn't limit it only to Farah's like experience. It's just in general, our experience reading and seeing them interact with each other should, to me anyways, does influence like how I feel about the friendship versus like found family. Cause I just think cozy family vibes with the inner circle is like what I get when I think about Mist and Fury. I think about the inner circle.
I just want to be on a couch by the fire drinking wine with Farah and Cassian. You know?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I agree. All right, so let's do found family first then. So what would you give your stars for found family?
Elyse, break the ice.
Oof. Okay. Mist and Fury 5 for sure. But you're like making me rethink Silver Flames now. Thank you, Myriam.
You did it.
because you have a good point. Like the bonds are so deep, but like, is it family or is it friendship? Like, how do you draw that line? So I guess I'll go, but at the same time, it like allows Nesta to open up and grow so much because she didn't feel comfortable with her own family and has so much resentment to her own family. And she found this space where she finally felt safe and comfortable. So, and
go with your gut.
Yeah, but that could just be the beauty of friendship. That doesn't have to be the beauty of family.
I'm going to say no, because as a theater person who works with a collective of lost souls constantly, I think that that's a very, Nesta's journey reminds me a lot of that. So I am going to go 5 and say that is her found family.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I respect it. I respect it.
Who's next?
I'm going to go 5 for ACOMF, 4 for ACOSF.
Myriam?
I'm going to go 5 for ACOMF. I'm going to go 3 for ACOSF.
I debated it. Yep.
Spicy. I like
it.
I can see that. I'm going to go, we're doing found family, right? Not friendship. Found family. Okay. 5 for ACOMF. And I'm going to also go 5 for ACOSF, mostly because of everything that happens during the blood rite. And because I feel like it's not necessarily the character's fault that we didn't get more of them together, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like I have different opinions on generally the flow of this book, but I think I agree. Just those moments when they're really open with each other, it's what found family is all about. Like you said, when you find people who you connect to more than your own blood relatives that you can be open with. And Nesta did find that with them. And I think, speaking from personal experience, that's a very important thing. And that's one of the main reasons I loved this book. So I'm going 5 stars as well. All right. Next, let's do friendship, since we've already kind of talked about that. That way we can kind of tie this like subject together. Any thoughts on friendship?
I'm going to go
4
for
and
5.
Oh, go ahead. Go. Sorry, repeat yourself, Amber.
We might have the same. I'm going to go 4 for ACOMF, 5 for ACOSF.
Me too.
Okay, hang on.
Same.
Myriam, you won us over. You did
it. I came ready to debate.
Hey, I love it. I'm here for it.
You brought the fire. Like, I actually disagree. Which, again, I think I love being able to talk about things and disagree and still be friends after. So let this be an example to everybody in the world who thinks that you can't agree and be cannot disagree and be friends still.
100%.
Yeah, take that, people.
I'm going to disagree with you guys on this vein. I'm giving them both 5 because I just resonate with the initial thing that Amber said of Reese and Farah's friendship, because I just think their friendship is very beautiful. And the moment that she has with Cassian, where she's punching the bag and she starts crying and he just sits and talks with her, is one of my favorite parts of that book. And I just think there are characters we don't know as much about yet, yes, but there are still very rich and beautiful friendships in both of these books. So I'm giving them both 5.
I love it. All right. What category are we going to next?
Let's do personal growth next, because I like this one.
I'm going to go last. I have a hot take on this one. So
hot take. Does anybody want to go first and risk Amber's hot take coming after?
Please. Tagger it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I mean, both books start out with like our main female characters being really, really at the bottom, which kind of makes for really interesting journeys. Like in ACOMF, Farah kind of starts as a shell of herself. She was in an abusive relationship. She's in a whole new world. She like doesn't know how to breathe. And she's in an environment that's like completely smothering her. And we kind of see her get pulled out of that. And Reese like does a lot for her in that way. And in allowing, like taking her out of that situation and meeting new people and everything, she like just allows her to realize what she wants and grow from that, which I think is really beautiful. And kind of what I was saying earlier is like, she's in a world that's not her own. And then she kind of starts like at the bottom, but she embraces it and learns about the world and goes to support the world and then trains her powers to really like save a world that's not hers, which I think is really amazing. And then on the ACOSF side, Nesta is her journey's messy, guys. It's really, really messy. And it's funny because like I listened to your coverage of this book, and at the beginning you guys were both saying how you didn't love, like there's aspects of the journey you didn't love, and I was like, I don't even want to hear it. Like I needed I didn't want to hear it because I was fresh off reading it and I loved it so much. And the reason I didn't want to hear it is because you guys are right about what you said in terms of like her journey, and like she didn't actually make the amends she should have on her journey, which is what I didn't want to hear, but you guys are absolutely right. But that being said, like I think the growth and like her roller coaster of not being linear and hitting rock bottom again during that ride is just very real to what a like depressive episode could be. And I think that's what like resonated with me so much as someone who's had the mental health issues, as someone who's lived with people with serious mental health issues. But it was so good. But then at the end, like, did she really make amends for her wrongdoings? Like, maybe not. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts.
But do you think making amends is like necessary to tie the bow on the personal growth?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you should to fully come like full circle and fully like clear yourself of all these things. Like that would be the last step, right? So it's like she still has that step she needs to take because she was forgiven almost too easily, which is something you guys discuss a lot on your podcast. And so it's like she got to a certain point, but there's that last step that it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Great question. Yeah. That's a great question, Myriam.
That is a really good question. I think in answer to your question, Myriam, for me, yes, it is personally necessary. But I think along with what you're saying, Elyse, I think for me, it's like the pacing of it where we spend so long and we get like with Nesta, she's like hurting other people. And that is a very realistic and real thing. I just hate the length of time we spend with that as a reader, just for enjoyment of the story purposes. Like Feyre, her journey was a lot more pleasant of a read. Nesta's, it was harder to read, mainly because I've been there, and it was kind of like, it was like one of those moments where I was reading the book and I was like, God, I hate Nesta. God, I hate Nesta. I don't want to read this book. And then I started reading the book and I was like, oh, it's because I hate looking in the mirror and seeing the things about myself that I don't like. And I have been like this at certain points in my life. And it just brought back all of those feelings. And so for me, I relate to Nesta's journey a lot, but I hate that it's like all of her juicy, good growth. We get a little tiny bit of it at the very end of the story. And again, just like with the Valkyries, I hope that in later books we get more of us seeing Nesta in a better place. But I just, as a reader, in terms of personal growth, it's going to be a lower rating for me for Silver Flames, just because we don't get to the good parts until like the last like 10 pages of this like 700-page book, you know? That's just my personal opinion though.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hear you.
And also, can I just say, Nesta is, we have come to find, she is the spark and the turning point and one of the people that divides this fandom like no other. People, the things that people have written where they're mad that we like on our reviews where they're like, it's okay unless Nesta did it or whatever. It's like, it's just crazy to me how spicy people feel about Nesta, and how like if you have anything bad to say about her at all, you know, you're a bad person. But it's like, no, Nesta did some bad things and it's okay to say that what she did was bad. It's not saying we hate her. It's just you have to own up to the bad stuff you did, which is why to me apologizing at the end is a very important step for me to feel good about her whole growth.
Yeah, we did a this or that video, and it was like one of the this or that was like Feyre or Nesta, and we chose Nesta, and like people were mad about it. People were like just like hating on Nesta, and I was like, oh, okay, I really liked her, but like I liked her because of her flaws and like because of her messy journey. But I was just like, okay, cool, you know.
But that's the messy journey is what makes her, and the fact that she's so polarizing is what makes her such a compelling character. That's like what's so great about her. And I'm wondering if with a little bit of time to digest Crescent City, I think, and I know Elyse has not read Crescent City yet, but I feel like people are currently having a very similar reaction to Bryce.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Bryce has become very polarizing as well, which we will have to loop back around to when Elyse has finished.
We should do a joint episode on Flame and Shadow, because I am very curious on everyone's thoughts together on that. Yeah. Let us know when you finish that, Elyse.
I'm going to need some time before I can emotionally be ready to reread it.
Yeah. That's the thing is, I feel like for that one, I feel like that this with a lot of SJM books, when you reread them, I have had different feelings on so many levels. Like Silver Flames, I came off that book and I was like, best book I've ever read. I love this book. And then we started rereading it for the podcast and I was like, there are parts of this book that I don't like. And I have a big one coming up later in this. And it was the same with Throne of Glass. I didn't connect with Throne of Glass the first time I read it. And then I reread it for the Flame and Shadow release, just in case there was, you know, crossovers. And I fell in love with Throne of Glass. And I was like, what was I thinking the first time I read this? So it's just crazy. I have spicy feelings about Flame and Shadow, but I wonder if on reread I may feel differently, and maybe other people might too. So
yeah, I think there was the expectations were just so high. We waited so long for it. Anyway.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, we'll do an episode on this. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned, listeners. All right, what's your hot take, Amber? I want to hear.
Yeah, I want to hear it too.
It's not a huge hot take. It's in the same vein as what you're all saying about Silver Flames. I really love the representation when it comes to Nesta and showing her struggles. I think that is very special and very unique that not a lot of authors can put into words and actually give you the feeling of, wow, this character is going through something and I know that they're going through it and it's legit, it's real. You know, it gives you that feeling. I wish the representation would be there of being able to pull yourself out of that really dark spot and coming out on the other side. Kind of like what you're saying. And I think it's the emphasis is so much on the struggle. It's not celebrated enough when she is able to, and it's the little things, right? It's when she's able to smile around Feyre. It's when she is able to open up to Cass. It's when she is able to open up to the Valkyries. When she thinks of the priestesses before she thinks of herself. When she, it's all of these little things that, because we're so focused on all of these like quote unquote not so great terrible things that Nesta is saying and doing when she's in said dark place, because it's just emphasized for so long, it's just the oomph isn't there at the end. Like the light at the end of the tunnel ends up just being a little nightlight rather than like a shiny bright room that it could be. And Nesta it would be different if Nesta was kind of subdued, but Nesta has that ferocity. She has that light at the end of the tunnel. She's always going to struggle with those things. And that's, again, realistic. That's why we like her. We don't want her to just be like, la-da-da, I'm great. I'm happy all the time. I'm healed. That's not realistic either. But it just doesn't pack a punch. Where Feyre's journey it packs a punch. When she can like winnow for the first time, when she finally punches and like through like with Cass and starts sobbing, like you're like, oh, whoa, that's intense. Mm-hmm. Where Nesta's intense situations are, oh, we just took 5 steps back. That was intense. I feel not so great for whomever's on the receiving end of it until the very end. But again, we don't get the kind of tied up in a bow. But Myriam, I really like your question of, does that matter? Because sometimes, because she was so intense in her lowest lows, I think we get so stuck on that we forget to recognize the growth, and we forget to see it because it's not at the same intensity. I mean, if she's at 100% when she's at her worst, and 100% intensity at her worst, and 20% intensity at her best, she's still at her best. She's just not as intense. And so we can't fail to recognize that growth, but it's really easy to just like, boop, great. The Valkyries are doing great. She's doing great. Her and Cass are doing great. Everything's great. But it like takes away from her like true emotional journey, I think. If that makes sense. I didn't have to do as hot of a take because you guys already kind of like summed it up for me.
I really did not want this to happen, okay? I was coming in here with my dogmatic views and my pre-decided ratings, but you've actually made me change my mind.
Ooh,
and I'm
interesting.
I don't know how I feel about it, because I was coming in and I was thinking ACOMF 4 on 5, ACOSF 5 on 5. But I think I'm going to have to flip well, I don't know if I'm going to, do I give both 4?
You can give the same star rating to both books if
No, I know. I'm just like now thinking out loud because I'm like, allowed. No. I'm just like, now I just don't know, because I think this is the reason I withheld a star from ACOMF. I think that if Feyre's journey, if we're all talking about this bow, being tied, I think that she would not have behaved in the Spring Court in ACOWAR the way she did if her journey was truly like complete, the way it is after ACOWAR. Like, to me, for her to have fully completed that journey, she would have forgiven Tamlin and not inflicted like all of this grief on him and a bunch of innocent people. Like when I read ACOWAR, I was like, yeah, I was so satisfied by like the revenge side of her actions. But after listening to the like your podcast, another podcast called Book Talk for Book Talk, like I've been really marinating on this, and the fact that she basically endangered a bunch of innocent people in the Spring Court in order to get her revenge on Ianthe and Tamlin, not great. So I'm docking a star for that. And now that we've kind of had this conversation about Nesta, yeah, I would dock a star from her as well. So I think I'd just give 4 all around. But it's tough because I feel like Nesta also started from such a lower point. So does that mean that the progress she made, like, are we looking at it from a proportion? Am I thinking too literal and like numbers now?
Okay, but that's my question is
it's showing.
Yeah. But my question is was she truly that much lower, or was it just because like when I think of like their lowest low, the timing of it was very different and very unique. Like they're completely separate situations. But like if you think of some of the things that like Feyre was thinking in her darkest moments, that was dark and scary. And I think like that intensity is kind of lost. I don't know if it's just like it just doesn't have the same intensity, but the words are there. It just like doesn't land quite as hard as like when we finally learn of like Nesta's inner monologue. And I don't know if that's just me kind of like pulling things out and like my own interpretation of Feyre's bottom, but it is it's very different regardless.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Feyre, I mean, the beginning of ACOMF
it's dark.
Bleak. Her in the Spring Court Manor is like some really heavy shit for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And we see through it too, like we see that 1 step forward, 2 steps back a little bit too, because she does have those moments of doubt, and she has those moments of replaying her trauma like throughout a lot of the book too. So it's like you could see to which degree it was really affecting her because it stays with her so long.
Yeah. And in my mind, in ACOMF, Feyre goes from that to where she is at the end of the book. If you're talking about true personal growth, I mean, that is exponential. Mm-hmm. And when I think of that compared to Nesta's growth, did Nesta make immense growth? Abso-freaking-lutely. Was it that intense? No, it was quite a bit more isolated. But that's just kind of like big picture how I think of like the two of them. If I truly have to compare the personal growth in the 2 books, which is tough, but
do you think it's because of what Hannah, like the issue Hannah has with it, which is the pacing? Do you think that if like the same growth happened, but just happened at a different speed, you would feel the same way?
Probably not. I would love to see like a timeline laid out of like each book. How many months is each book?
Rosebud's Realm has one.
Ooh, I've actually never seen that. We should take a peek at that. But you're probably right. You're probably right. It would definitely change that. All right, what are we going for ratings?
Well, I gave mine 4 across the board.
Okay.
4 for both? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 5 Mist and Fury, 4 Silver Flames.
I'm debating. I'm going to go 5 Mist and Fury. I think I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 3 Silver Flames.
Okay.
Hannah's like bracing herself.
This is so hard. And I would like to say from a, because this is how I always talk about things with with Amber and also with my husband too, of just like scientifically speaking, if we were doing an actual like case study on this, each of these variables holds different weight for me personally. So I would say these numbers at the end, I would say is why objectively how we feel about these books, but subjectively we still may feel differently. So I would like to highlight that. And I'm really only, I don't know what to give. Okay. Mist and Fury is definitely a 5. I think I am going to still go for Silver Flames because you're right. There is still a lot of growth there. Most of my issue is just with Sarah J. Maas's writing of the pacing in that book, not Nesta as the character herself. Please don't come after me, SJM people. I'm sorry. Okay, so next we're going to move into romance.
Man. Who wants to go first on this one? Hannah, you go first.
Okay. This is where I have a hot take, and I hate my hot take.
Ah,
And
I knew it.
Okay.
Say it
Again.
out loud.
Mist and Fury's better.
Hannah, in my heart of hearts, I knew you were going to have these feelings.
Yes, because at my truest core, if you guys know anything about me, it's that I am a romantic at heart. I value romance and tension and those things over just smut, which I love. I love smut. Just wait for my rating later for the next category. But Mist and Fury, the moment where Rhys reveals everything to Feyre, chapter 54 is one of the most beautiful chapters I have ever read in my life. I cried so hard during that chapter. It was so beautiful. Just them coming together and their friendship leading up to it. I'm a firm believer that it doesn't matter all about the romance. Your friendship leading into your relationship plays a huge impact in it. And we see that later on in the books with those two. I feel like they don't rely as much on their romantic bond. It's really about their friendship. But the romance between Rhys and Feyre is top tier. The romance between Cassian and Nesta is lacking. And
it's non-existent.
I saw someone say that literally 0 times do they tell each other they love each other. It's like not, I don't think they say it to each other. Nesta says it in her head. Like she loved Cassian from the moment she saw him. She knew she loved him. But, and you guys, we can fact check this later, but I saw that on the internet and I was like, oh, yeah. I got so swept up in the spice that, yeah, it's not until the very, and even at the very fucking end, when Cassian's like, I'm your mate, stop fighting it. Like she still doesn't want to like admit it. And it's just so,
and it goes back to the personal growth.
Yeah, because even at that point, yes, we haven't even hit that with them. And so I'm sure in future books, we may see more of that. In terms of these two books compared to each other, Silver Flames ranks like quite low for me. And I also have one more thing I want to say before everyone else says something. And it really has nothing to do with romance itself, but more with the mating bond. Can I just say, Rhys-Anne got a can of Campbell's soup. Cassian got like a crusty cracker. Whoever Elaine's maid is in for a treat. She's gonna bake them like a full course meal. Like, can you imagine? I just think it's so. I just think it's so funny. Like the two mating bond like treats that they got, which I find comical. But I don't know. I thought about that just now. Of whoever Elaine's maid is one lucky dude. Or lady, whoever she chooses. But anyways, that was my hot take, and I hate myself for it, but there it is.
I will say, I agree with Mist and Fury. The romance of Mist and Fury is everything, and will be very tough to top in my lifetime. Silver Flames, I do have to say, I mean, I agree with everything that you said, but one thing to think about is that romance can look very different for different people, obviously. And I think romance for them is that sarcastic sexual tension and whatever it is that makes Cass and Nesta electric. I do think that for them, even if we have more Cass and Nesta in the future, their romance is not going to be the ooey gooey kind. Even when Nesta truly makes her full journey, it's not going to be the ooey gooey kind. It's going to be the snarky, sarcastic, witty, funny, sexual, like that kind of romance. And that's very, very different. But it's still romance. And especially for them, obviously it works. It got to them to where they need to go. But in this book, it's just not portrayed as romance. It's portrayed as a means to an end of like being able to do the deed and figure out that they're mates. So I'd be interested.
More like friends with benefits for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd be interested to see how like the romance aspect of them has the potential to blossom with their unique personalities. But I agree. I think that you can't even really compare the two when it comes to romance, honestly, because you have ACOMF, and you could give me any book and you're not going to beat it.
What do you guys think?
I think you have a really good point, though, like in saying that in Silver Flames, their brand of romance is like it's not the traditional ooey gooey love fest. Like that's just not who they are. But what I will say, though, in Silver Flames is I think, well, one, Nesta wasn't in a place to be able to be in a healthy romantic relationship. So it's kind of hard to like shove someone in that when they're at the place where she was mentally. But what we do see of the romantic relationship is very one-sided. Like Cassian, that man, the like softest soul, the most patient person
I'm just gonna put him in his crate.
Totally fine.
So what were you saying, Elyse?
That Cassian is just, he, like they say in the book, continuously extends his hand to Nesta and is so patient with her. And you cannot be that patient to the level that he is if you do not truly love someone. And I think he shows just a very different kind of love in those books. But Nesta barely gives back the entire book. And I hope that it's a place they could get to. It's just not something that we see in Silver Flames. And then next to ACOMF, like you guys are saying, like it's like one of the most romantic relationships and development of a relationship that I've ever read. And like Rhys just sees her on another level and gives Feyre everything that she needs to be able to have her personal growth. And like he kind of does it in a way that he's putting the pieces into place and stepping back and letting her grow, and like eventually lets her come to him and realize that she loves him too. And it's just such a beautiful story. So it's like, how could you compare the two, And coming from someone who adores Silver Flames, like, yeah on a romance level, it's not even comparable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with what you said about Rhys. I feel like we've had this conversation, Elyse, where I feel like Rhys, if you compare Rhys and Tamlin to Dane and Xaden, bear with me.
Yep.
Tamlin and Dane stand in front of the woman to like protect her. And that's like how they show the love for the woman or whatever, is like by removing obstacles from their path in order to like make their life easier or whatever. Whereas Xaden and Rhys stand beside them and like give them the space to be strong and like kind of walk into their own power and discover their strengths like on their own, and are supportive and give them the tools, exactly like Elyse was saying. So I agree with that. And I also agree with what you're saying about how romance, well, the three of you are saying how romance can look different. But I feel like Nesta, and like I'm shocking myself a little bit defending her here, I feel like she has her brand of romance is in the do not tell. So like if you think of that first time where they had that, like, I think it's the first time like she goes down on him when he was like kind of upset over what Eris said. Like that was like a protective, I feel like, yes, okay, it was sexual and it had to do with like the tension, but it was also like a feeling of wanting to validate his feelings and make him feel worthy. And to me, I find that kind of romantic. So like there's like that protective element there. You think it at the very end when she changes her anatomy with, they've never even talked about starting a family, but she kind of like preemptively gives him this gift of, I've changed my anatomy to give you a child one day, or to like for us to start a family together. It's a lot of this like really, really subtle, quiet, romantic gestures that obviously when we compare it to ACOMF, where there's all of these beautiful big moments, it's very difficult to compare. But I just think that there's this like quiet, the way some women, not some people have like a quiet strength that kind of goes unnoticed. I think that they have a quiet romance that goes unnoticed. And yes, Cassian is a little bit more overt. He wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit more, but I think that she shows him in, like, those are just the two ways I can think of off the top of my head, that like she does love him. And I find that romantic. I don't know.
I like that. I don't know. I feel like it definitely, it's hard because I agree with what Elyse was saying, where it's like, and a combination of what you two are saying of like, Nesta wasn't, she's like mentally not in a place where she can be like frou-frou romantic. And I agree with you, Amber, that's not her brand. I think it could be Cassian's brand a little more than Nesta's, but I think that has a huge impact on it. But I like the tying it together of Nesta's. I feel like Nesta gave him what she was able to at that time in her life. So I like that. It has changed my rating slightly.
But I mean, not everyone is going to have this like same, like we've been saying, like everyone's version of romance. Like they say it all the time in the book that Cassian and Nesta are always going to be fierce. Like I would describe their love as fierce. It's like, it's spicy in the fact that they're butting heads and they're fighting for each other, and it's going to be difficult. And it's, you know, whereas if you look at, if I think of like Reese and Farrah, I think of like cotton candy. Like I just think of like rainbows and butterflies. Like I just think of beautiful things, you know, like they've been through it and they've had their struggles and they've, you know, moved past it or whatever. But I just think the brand of romance is completely different. And I have to like stop myself. Otherwise I'll just monologue.
This is what podcasting is for. Okay. Does anybody have any other thoughts that they want to share on romance? Okay. Who's going to rate first?
You should do the honors.
Oh God. Okay. Mist and Fury is a 5. I'm giving ACOSF a 3. I'm giving it a 3.
That's generous. I thought you were going to go lower.
Well, you changed my mind, Myriam.
I've got the same rating.
So do I.
Wait, you also have 5 and 3?
I do as well.
Whoa.
It hurts to say, but
I think like take what you will from it. I was really ready to give ACOSF a 1, and I talked myself into giving it a 3.
I love that. The power of self-persuasion.
When I was like reviewing the stuff, I was just like, oh yeah, romance, it's so good. And then I like sat and thought about the romance in Silver Flames, and I was like, oh no, like it's not a 5, you know?
Yeah.
It's not. Well, this brings us to our last category. Let's talk about sex baby. All right. Let's start with Myriam, you go first for this one.
Okay. Okay. Thoughts. ACOMF has more variety. The variety of sexual moments in ACOMF, I love. The throne scene, the inn scene, chapter 55. Love it. But like the pure animalistic power of Silver Flames is just unparalleled. I feel like it's like almost a crime to compare them.
Yeah, it's like Silver Flames. Like as a person,
and I'm sweating. Like I can't even. I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like.
Yeah, Silver Flames is like, we mentioned that multiple times, how it's just like passionate, feral. Like feral is a word I would use to describe Silver Flames. And I feel like the thing that makes it beautiful is Cassian and Nesta match each other's energies. Like it is intense. The number of times my jaw hits the floor during Silver Flames because of the things that not just Cassian says, but the things that Nesta says, I'm like, I could never say that out loud, like in a serious way during like a sexual encounter. I would blush and laugh and like I would melt, not in a good way, in a bad way. I wouldn't be able to deliver the lines like they do. But Rhys and Farah, I feel like have this very soft, like natural, more like conversational feel to their like sexual escapades, and theirs is definitely, yeah, like they've got the paint, like they have all these things where it's like you're like, ah, and then you read Silver Flames and you're like, whoa. It's like have you seen the meme where it's like, beep boop beep, I told you we needed more glitter? Like those are those two books. Like
I feel like what you just said just like sparked something in me. So you have ACOMF and ACOSF. They both have really great sex. ACOMF is one step away from a beautiful romance novel. ACOSF is one step away from just a pure filthy smut novel. Like it doesn't even need a plot. Just do it and I'll be happy. You know, and that's the difference. If you take out the romance and the ooey gooey of ACOMF, the sex is better in ACOSF. But you can't separate one from the other, and that's why the sex in ACOMF is so good. It's so good because it's beautifully romantic and lovely, but ACOSF is just, like you said, it's feral. It is just nitty gritty. It's just like down and dirty in everything you want. They say everything you want to hear someone say in a filthy moment, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think like in ACOMF, there's just like, it's a build too, right? Like it starts off like there's the tension and then there's the human city and then like then the end, like we're building up to something, and it's, I guess like you're saying, it's more of a romantic journey because it's still really hot, and like what happens, you're just like, okay, you know, but
yes,
it's a slow build to that to get to chapter 55. Whereas like ACOSF, they know what they want and they're not afraid to like go for it or ask for it. And they just jump in head first. And it's like rough and it's dirty and it's just very animalistic, I guess, you know? So it's just a very different, I guess, like their romantic styles, just very different styles, you know? But there's, yeah, I don't know, Silver Flames, like there's some moments where I didn't even know what to do with myself.
Yes. It's like the difference between like on the table where it's like with the paint and on the table, it's like the words that are coming out of their mouth, like make your jaw drop because not only is it really hot, but it's just like sweet. But then like Silver Flames, after like the first time that Nesta goes down on him and like, or like something crazy happens and 2 days later, they're like, did you taste me on your tongue for the next 3 days like I tasted you? And it's just like, bam, out of nowhere. And you're like, what? What did you just say?
Yeah. I'm here to settle a debt between us. Like
that line,
sir.
Yeah.
That
line.
Close the door.
Yeah.
That is one of the best lines of that book. Like, can I be in debt forever, please? I want to be in Cassie and credit card debt for the rest of my life.
Rack up that interest.
Listen, 25% interest.
25% interest. I'm not going to be able to pay that back by the time I die, so it's fine.
No. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. That's beautiful.
Okay, I have a question for you girls because Elyse asked me this, and I think I sat there for like 7 whole minutes trying to answer it and struggled to no end.
Okay.
Do you think ACOMF would have been as good as it was without any of the spice? Or was it without any of the spice or without chapter 55? Without chapter 55.
I was actually saying, as a whole, would ACOTAR be as successful if it wasn't as graphic? And the reason I asked that is because I posted a video talking about chapter 54 and 55, and most people said they prefer 54 over 55. So I was like, oh, does the spice scenes not matter to people as much as the romance?
I think that people like chapter 54 more than 55 because it ties up all of your loose ends that you feel about Rhys. All the ick that he gave you in the first book, chapter 54 is like, oh, now I fully love this character that I've wanted to love the entire time, but you can't quite let yourself love him because he did a lot of icky things. And chapter 54 was him spilling his guts and explaining the who, what, where, when, why. And you're like, oh my God, oh my gosh. And that's the jaw-dropping moment. And it just so happens that the sex follows that crazy jaw-dropping moment. But I think that's why people like chapter 54, because it is so, it's not just like one loose end that is tied up. It's like all the shitty things that Rhys did.
That's a good point.
That is a good point. I just feel like I have such a different perspective on this. And Amber and I talked a lot about this after our first read of this series. I am a high fantasy girly. I love intense world building. And sometimes I feel like with Sarah J. Maas, and I love her, okay? Again, please don't come at me. But I think that sometimes the smut takes away from the really cool world building that could happen. And we get really caught up in that. And I personally, I like the sex, but sometimes like Silver Flames is kind of an exception because there was a lot of world building, but I think I would have preferred a little more romance over all of the spice, if that makes sense. So I feel like, to answer your question, I don't know if it would be as successful. I think there are a lot of people who wanted, I think the thing that makes SJM successful is that she can marry romance. And like, she's true romantasy. We get world building, we get fantasy aspects, and we get ooey gooey romance and spice. So no, I don't think that it would be as successful without all of the spice, because I think she'd lose a huge portion of her fan base that really loves a lot of spice. I don't think that takes away from her merit at all. I just think it was brilliant of her to marry the two things together, because for me personally, I had never read a lot of like fantasy that had especially female written romance, which I think is important to have in a genre. So I think it's cool that she did that. But I think without it, I don't know. And maybe she would have spent other time on other things and she could have been just as successful in regular fantasy. But I think because of the romantasy aspect, no, without the spice, I don't think it'd be the same. Again, please don't hate me, people.
No one hates you. It's okay. No one is gonna rip on you for that. Absolutely not. You're so valid in saying that. 100%.
Yeah.
I think that people say that they prefer 54 because they've got 55.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
I think that like one with I even joke that like it just should have been one whole chapter. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as like Rhys tells her like about the human queens, like that should have been 55 and like everything else should have been 54, because I think that and I understand why, like having the two chapters and like whatever, like I get it. But I think that it's like you can't appreciate the dark without the light or the light without the dark.
Mm-hmm.
You need both sides to round out this beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest,
that.
I wasn't somebody like who was a big like high fantasy reader. I read Harry Potter. ACOTAR was my gateway drug. And I wasn't a big like smutty reader either. So I didn't really know, like this is kind of what formed my opinions on and like my preferences in the genre. And I can't go back. Like I can't go back to just...
I agree. That's what I was saying in the beginning, how I said that this book is almost like nostalgic. And that's exactly what you just described is why. It like, ACOTAR is like my gateway. And now it's like, it was like the built the foundation to the pyramid of my reading career while coming back to my reading life.
Yeah.
It was for sure. It was my first like experience, I guess, really reading a spicy book. I've never really read like scenes with like graphic or like, graphic scenes in it, but it's great and I love it. But I also haven't like, I'm still at the beginning. So I haven't like read enough to like really make a judgment. But kind of what you just said, Amber, like in reviewing, I was like reading synopses today and just like to make my notes, like I already want to reread it. Like there's just such a draw to this series and that nostalgic feeling. Like I just finished my first read a month ago. Like it's so fresh off the read and I'm already like, oh, but I just want to relive this again. And like I've lent it to friends and I'm like living through their experiences too. But like there's already that nostalgia so fresh off the read. That's crazy.
So now you understand why I restarted it immediately on the plane ride home for my honeymoon. Like I was not ready to let my friends go. Like these people were my friends. I would tell my husband, like, I'm sad. I feel like I'm saying goodbye to like my friends. And he was just like, looks at me and he's like, okay, crazy. Let's go to bed.
Like, you don't understand. You don't understand. It's fine. I'll go talk to my friends that do understand.
Exactly. But you know, like our whole friend group now is 100% on this train. Like they've read all of ACOTAR. I've got some of them who have started Throne of Glass first, because I think that if you have never read any of these books at all, you should start with Throne of Glass, then go to ACOTAR, then go to Crescent City. Like that's my personal opinion. And then you can open the world to like Fourth Wing, From Blood and Ash, and then on and on and on and on. But it's very special.
It's such a special thing. And it's one of those things where like the number of people who have read this series is astronomical. Like I'm a physical therapist. The people that I work with are very, I don't know, like my coworkers are people I would never expect to read these books. And when they ask me, like when I have my Kindle at work and they ask me what I read, and then I tell them what I read, and then they ask me if I've read ACOTAR, I'm like, wait, yes, I have a podcast on it. And have you read it? And the number in this job alone, this contract in the last 3 months, I've met like 5 people that have read the series, and it has blown my mind every single time. Every time when I wear a t-shirt out in public and someone's like, oh my God, I love ACOTAR. It's like this cool community that you get to be a part of. And I feel like for everyone, this is a series that for our generation, I feel like for a little while, we kind of lost our love for reading in the hustle and bustle of going to college. You know, like that was a big thing for us to go to school. And then you read a shit ton in school. And then it's not fun reading, it's studying. And then you get out into the real world and you just kind of forget about reading. And this series, I feel like rekindled so many people's love for reading that it's top tier. You really just can't compare anything else to it. It's so amazing.
But it's also the community. Like growing up, we're all about the same age. Like growing up, we grew up with Harry Potter. Then we had Twilight. Then we had Hunger Games. Then we had, like we had these series and these moments that we could share with so many people. And I feel like ACOTAR opened that up again for us, but as adults.
Yeah. And the ability to actually like own that you love it too. Where I feel like when we were younger, it was like not as cool to be nerdy and love reading and like dragons and all of that stuff. And now it's like, no, it's just so universally accepted among our generation, which I think is really cool. And I really think we're all going to be like 80-year-olds being like, the new dragon fantasy came out and I'm standing in line at Barnes and Noble with my walker, like, and my grandkids. Like, I really think that's going to be all of us, because I don't feel like any of us will be letting that go because of this moment of rekindling, you know? So I just think it's so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also think, and this is potentially a hot take, I don't know, but I also think that it's changing. Well, I know for a fact it's changing our like attitudes towards sex that I think is really important. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend who recently left a marriage, and he went on his first date like post marriage on Friday. And the girl, he's like, Myriam, the girl reads the books you read. She like, you would love her. Like, he's telling me like all the books like that she likes. And he's like, he goes, I've like found quotes to like impress her about the series. So I was like, I guarantee you one of them is grab the headboard. He's like, yeah, how did you know? I was like, because this is, I know these books. But he goes, but Myriam, like, she's so like sexually confident. Like, he was actually a little bit intimidated by it. And I was like, no, that's amazing. Like, I think it's great that now women's sex drive and women's desires are talked about openly, and like not like that, this shift of like, don't be intimidated by it. It's not just a guy who can like it and like having a lot of sex and like, I don't know, like talking about it and being open about it and all of those things. And I think that these books have done that. And they've also, because they're written by women, I mean, Elyse and I have talked about it. I think that like these women have amazing sex lives, because I think that if their husbands don't read their books and then put into action what's in the books, they're dumb. Like, it's literally a manual of like what to do to make your wife happy. So so I feel like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like, you know what I mean? I just think that it's changing.
Oh,
absolutely.
1,000%.
I mean, just the characters are like confident and vocal about what they want, which like shows women that it's okay to be that way. Because growing up, like if you think about all the movies and stuff that we had, like all the college movies, it was so just like women were just there as like something to ogle at or whatever, and to serve the male characters and to be sexy for the male characters. So it's just like, we didn't talk about female pleasure, and we didn't talk about like what women liked, and that it was okay that women liked sex and all of that. So it's just so nice to finally have these like role models, in a sense that it's like, yeah, women do like sex, and like they could be vocal about it, and they could tell you exactly what they want, and like pleasure goes both ways, you know. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. And even I feel like that can even go down to the fact of like the way we dress and the way we act is like, it's not, we can be confident wearing whatever we want, whatever it looks like, 100% of the time, knowing that other women also feel that way, and that no matter what, someone will have your back. Someone will have your back if someone gives you the ick. You know, someone will always be there. So you can be confident. You have that capacity to do that, because A, it's okay. B, you can be a publicly sexual person without it being frowned upon. Largely. I mean, and the people who do frown upon it just don't understand it, and that's okay. But I love that. That's a really great point.
I would say on a personal note, I mean, like people who have listened to our podcast kind of know this, but like I recently deconstructed, you know, from being a very religious person who was a lot of what I was a part of was shaming, making women feel like their bodies were made to please their partners. And that was like your role in sexual partnership, and also very degrading toward women in terms of just the way you felt about your body and just not being able to trust yourself innately. And when I say that these books have changed my life, I can't lie. They have changed my life. I know it might be TMI and too personal, but like they have changed my sex life. They have changed the way I enjoy sex. I have way more fun with it now. I find more pleasure now. I'm way more communicative. My husband just read Mist and Fury. Like, you know, like I have someone who's willing to read those things and understand me on that level better too. And it's like, I never thought that I could have that. And also, if you would have asked me if I would be on a podcast 2 years ago, if you would have asked me if I would be on a podcast talking in depth about sexual escapades in a book, I would say, no, you're crazy. Or even talking about my own sex life, albeit vaguely, but in general mentioning it, I never would have done that. And these books, and obviously my friendship with Amber, have just given me like the confidence to be able to do that. And I, no matter how sometimes I have gripes with the writing or like things like that, I'll forever be grateful to SJM for that, and just romantasy in general. Yeah, it's so good.
We just got way deep.
We did. We did. Love that. Are we gonna give our ratings to sex now that we talked about it? We weren't lying when we said let's talk about sex, baby. All right, I'm gonna give mine. I'm giving them both 5 stars for different reasons, but both get 5 stars from me.
I was gonna say the same thing for very different reasons, but they're both 5.
Yep.
Not to be boring, but same.
Amber?
Yep, same.
Perfect. Okay.
There hasn't been a lot of like disagreements today.
No.
The showdown is not showing down.
I think that this has to do with the fact that we're all very open-minded people and are willing to listen to other people's opinions, which is a good thing. But I will say, you guys have swayed some of my thoughts and my ratings. I didn't like have concrete ratings come into this, but I kind of knew generally like how I felt about each topic. So I'm interested to see how these shake out. So do we want to move into our last segment, and then I'll tally up our points while we do our last segment? Okay.
Sure.
So for those of you who listen to our podcast but haven't checked out Book Bound Besties, which if you haven't, you should, on their podcast, they give awards for different lines. And so we all are going to go through and give different awards. Our award categories are cheesiest line, but it's not cheesy because we love the book. Number 2, any Easter egg that we found. For example, there you are, I've been looking for you. And number 3, most jaw-dropping line. Who's going to go first?
Are we going to go like category by category? Like we all say cheesiest?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that makes sense. That way we can all be like thinking about the same thing while we're talking about it.
Okay, I'll go first for cheesiest. I felt a little bit like bad picking cheesiest because I was like, I don't want to make fun of the book. But anyway, for ACOMF, that I will bow before no one and nothing but my crown, in reference to Reese's knee tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And then for ACOSF, I am the rock against which the surf crashes. A little cheesy. Gwen's mantra, a little cheesy, but at the same time, such an empowering moment. So it was a tough balance, this category.
It is. I definitely see how both of those could be cheesy if we didn't love it so much. And in general, which I think is why I love Gwen so much, she is a very cheesy person. So like I could definitely like a lot of the stuff she says is kind of cheesy, but like because we love her, we're like, oh, Gwen, you beautiful soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, who's going next?
Amber, you want to go?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I had for ACOMF, I had when Farah said, I was not prey any longer. I decided as I eased up to that door, and I was not a mouse. I was a wolf. And when I read this, it wasn't cheesy at all. But then when I went back and read it, I was like, okay, it's a little cheesy. But like, again, it lands because of like how they used it. But like isolating it, I'm like, that's cheesy. And this for ACOSF, it's more like cheesy, goofy. But it's when I'll just read it. Reese lifted his head. This is a bad idea. Cassian winked. That should be written on the Night Court crest.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's
That's
so
a good one.
cheesy, but it's like, it's so Cass. It's just perfection, but it's so cheesy.
It's so himbo. It's so perfectly.
It is. It is.
Oh man.
I love that description.
Yep.
Myriam, do you want to go?
Sure. So my ACOMF, and this is like potentially controversial, but I think to the people who look at the stars and wish, to the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered, I think that's kind of cheesy, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And for ACOMF and for ACOSF, I picked the same as Elyse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one could definitely be cheesy. Think about it. I like to think about it in terms of like, if someone looked at me deadpan and like delivered, like said that to me, like, would I laugh? I would definitely
Where did
laugh.
this come from?
Yeah, like, okay.
It would be like, I can't tell if you're joking, ?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Mine for Mist and Fury is when they're like in the woods. I think they're training, and Lucian finds them, and Feyre tells Lucian, "When you spend so long trapped in the darkness, Lucian, you find that the darkness begins to stare back." Like,
That's so good.
That's
so
a cheesy.
great one.
It's so cheesy, but like. But I do love it. I think we gushed for like 10 minutes about that line on the podcast. But like going back and thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's like very much like an action movie. Like if you're watching a satirical version of an action movie, like, yeah, this would be a line that would be delivered.
That's one of
Or
those
like
things
for like a CSI Miami line, you know, when like Horatio takes his glasses off and like gives a line to the camera, like that's
Yes.
That's hilarious. My heart has such a hard time agreeing with that, because I love this line, but you're so right. It's such a like whip to the camera.
Yeah. It stares back. And then there's dramatic music in the background. Yeah. Yeah. We should that's what we should do. We should make the four of us make a 4-man show of like some of these scenes and do a satirical version of these. I think it'd be a hit. Like, you know how does like the real actual like where they film like beautiful and touching like actual renditions of what happens. Like we should do a satirical version.
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome.
That would be.
Okay, and then my Silver Flames line. I also am sad that I chose this, but we talked about this a little bit in the podcast. It's when Cassian says, "Hold on tight," right after he tells Nesta to put her hands on the headboard. Because it's just giving, if it's not coming from Cassian, it can be very Edward Cullen, like "Hold on tight, spider monkey," where it's just so bad. Like if someone actually told me "hold on tight," I think I would probably burst out laughing.
Either that or be legitimately a little nervous.
Like alarmed.
Yeah, right? Like, why?
Like, wait, what? What's about to happen?
Should I be wearing a sports bra for this? Like, what level of impact do I need from this?
How tall do I need to be to get on this ride?
Oh my God.
Will my back hurt tomorrow? I need to know.
Do I need to call into work? Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Not expecting that.
Wow. Yeah.
I apologize in advance to your listeners when we come on your podcast, because we get unhinged when it comes to sex, though.
Yeah, we do.
I love it.
Man.
Okay, so next we're gonna do Easter egg lines, and we can just go in the same order if you guys want to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My Mist and Fury Easter egg. When is your birthday? Do I even need to count them anymore? It's the winter solstice. He was quiet for a long minute. You were truly born on the winter solstice? Guys, do you know what the winter solstice is? It's the longest night of the year. Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. I love it.
I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
That is a really good one.
I sadly didn't find one for Silver Flames, and I tried, but then the internet was giving me Easter eggs that tied to books I have yet to read. So I was like, no. And yeah,
Valid.
Yes,
Okay.
very understandable.
For ACOMF, I had Feyre is thinking to herself, he thinks he'll be remembered as the villain in the story. But I forgot to tell him that the villain is usually the person who locks up the maiden and throws away the key. He was the one who let me out. And this was like right when we started like shifting our feeling of Rhys. So I feel like it's an Easter egg because it's like, that's the first time where you're like, oh, he's someone acknowledged that he's not the villain. Like Feyre has said it, or at least like acknowledged it in her mind. I think that that's really an important moment.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
And ACOSF, I love this one. This was after they made their friendship bracelets. They said, I wish for us to have the courage to go out into the world when we are ready, but to always be able to find our way back to each other, no matter what.
Oh, I love
what
that
beautiful
one. That's such a good one.
foreshadowing. What
I do too.
Beautiful foreshadowing.
That's incredible.
I feel like you
Great
guys
find.
did such a good job. Those are like 4 great quotes.
Yeah, those are amazing.
Yeah. So mine for ACOMF is when Rhys says, so we're going on another little trip to see if you can find a valuable object of mine that I've been missing for a considerably long time, which is when Feyre goes and gets her ring from the Weaver's Cottage. And I told the story. I told the story on the podcast how I made my own proposal speech. So it just reminds me of that. So I just love that. And I did it because I was tricked into it, not because it was like on purpose. My husband, like, anyway, it's a long story. So I have a special place in my heart for the shenanigans that Rhys puts Feyre through.
That's
and
amazing.
in ACOSF, it's when Nesta is about to scry again. She thinks to herself, she felt Cassian's hand tighten on hers. That was the way back. Nothing could trap her, hold her if she had that way home. And I find that the fact that she thought of him as home is like an Easter egg to their mating bond.
Oh,
yes.
All of these are giving me goosebumps.
I know. I'm like, I just love all of these books so much. Oh, okay. I didn't have one for Silver Flames either. I couldn't really find one that I felt wasn't too spoilery for other things. And especially because it was the last book, is kind of hard. But I think it's amazing you two found one. That's incredible. So my Mist and Fury one is kind of similar to Elyse's. It's where Feyre, I think it's in chapter 54, when she was talking to him, and she said, I painted stars and the moon and clouds and just endless dark sky. I finished the 6th, and I was well on my way to sawing through the 7th before I said. I never knew why. I rarely went outside at night. Usually I was so tired from hunting that I just wanted to sleep. But I wonder, I pulled out the 7th and final arrow. I wonder if some part of me knew what was waiting for me.
I almost put that one too. It's so good.
I feel like that's the thing with Rhys and Feyre, is they just have like so many things that have tied them together from the very beginning. It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Oh my God. So next we're moving into most jaw-dropping line.
Okay. So in Highburn, now that I've held up my end of the bargain, I expect you to hold up yours. The way my jaw dropped when Tamlin and Lucien were in Highburn, I did not see it coming. I was, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yes. That is such a jaw-dropping moment, because you're like, that was like a moment where I was audibly like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? Damn.
That's a throw your book across the room moment.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
The betrayal.
You're like, this
And
guy.
I just insane. And then ACOSF, not today. Today she would happen to him. Nesta let the power flow through her, allowing the mass to do as she wished, raising the honored dead who had once been buried here and suffered the sacrilege of serving an endless meal to the Kelpie and his ilk. So when she raises the dead, that whole chapter, that whole moment
Honestly.
is so powerful and big for her journey. I just,
Yeah.
So good.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay. For mine, I did jaw dropping. I figured I would take a slightly different route. I went like, because for me, some of the most jaw dropping moments are the really, really sweet ones. Or like, it's like the build up. And it's so sweet that I like have to like put my book down and just like pick my jaw up off the ground. But in ACOMF, this is after Rhys finds Feyre in the cabin, chapter 54 and 55. And he tells his entire story. And they have this obviously amazing intimate moment. And Feyre comes and sits on his lap. After she didn't say anything, mind you, the whole time he's like telling his entire intense story. And she says, and now I want you to know, Rhysand, that I love you. I want you to know that I am broken and healing, but every piece of my heart belongs to you. And I am honored to be your mate. And I'd endure every second of it again over so I could find you. And if war comes, we'll face it together. I won't let them take me from you. And I won't let them take you from me either.
I'm melting.
That's so good.
The way, yeah. I just, it's a jaw dropping in a different way, but just, yeah, I love it.
Yes.
And then in ACOSF, this one ruins me. Gwen's fingers slid into hers, squeezing tight. Nesta looked up to find her holding Emery's free hand as well. Gwen smiled again, her eyes bright. Our stories are worth telling. That moment punched me in the gut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it. One of the most beautiful parts of Silver Flames.
Yeah, I cried through much of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Same.
Okay. My Mist and Fury most jaw-dropping line was at the very end when Rhys turns to the inner circle and says, "She is my mate and my spy, and she is High Lady of the Night Court." That moment,
Mic drop.
I just wanted to like yell, like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot like Elise, my ACOSF jaw dropping. It was actually like not a line. It was the entire moment in the Bog of Urid. And like, especially when Cass and Az kneel before her. Like, kill me now.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%. My Mist and Fury is similar to yours, Myriam. I mean, it's basically the same thing. I just chose the line where Rhys says, if they had removed her other glove, they would have seen a second tattoo on her right arm. The twin to the other, inked last night when we crept out, found a priestess, and I swore her in as my High Lady. I was like,
that moment?
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
So good. And then I went a different route for Silver Flames. I went a spicy route for jaw dropping, which is like a half that book, honestly. Besides put your hands on the headboard, that's like an obvious one. One of my favorites is when Cassian says, "Do you like seeing me kneel before you? You taste like you do." Again, I was just like,
oh my God.
Like my brain cannot compute. Like I'm malfunctioning. Like,
well, because it's such a parallel to when Rhys tells Feyre, "Did you enjoy the sight of me kneeling before you?"
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we have mentioned. I think maybe it's not in one we released yet, but we talked about how do the Bat Boys swap sex tips where like Rhys is like, "Dude, I used this one on Feyre and it worked so well."
And
like
she freaking loved
really
it.
wow, Nesta. Yeah, like
you gotta try it. It really winds them up.
Just kneel
Gets 'em
before
going.
her.
So yeah, I could so see them doing that. My God, yeah.
Oh,
In the Birchin.
Yes.
Oh,
They're just
don't get us
chatting
started
up.
on the Birchin.
Oh yeah. We reviewed a fanfic for that on our Patreon, and it was really
Ooh,
good.
I'm
spicy.
I'm intrigued, but also scared.
Oh,
It's
it's so
good.
good. Don't be scared.
If you like spice,
Dive in.
it's good.
Even if
Yeah.
you don't like spice, read it anyway.
The steam
If you
is
like
warm.
ACOTAR, just read it. Do yourself a favor.
We'll have to put it in the show notes.
Yes, we'll link it in the show notes. Okay, are you guys ready for the results?
Let's do it.
Insert dramatic drum roll. Overall, Mist and Fury was the winner by basically an average of 1 to 2 points from all of us. All of us chose Mist and Fury as the best objectively with the categories that we chose. Amber by 1 point, me by 2 points. God. Elyse by 1 point, and Myriam by 2 points.
Oh, I thought it would be more than that.
Yeah,
me
thought
too.
it would be too.
No, just 2. Because you went lower on one of your Mist and Fury ratings, I think.
Yeah, I think on the friendships.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. There you go. There you have it. Mist and Fury is the winner.
Mist and Fury is the winner. Oh,
Yeah.
that was fun.
That
I think
was
we
fun.
we could literally have another 2-hour episode with 5 different categories and have probably a different result, a very different result.
Maybe we should do, once Elyse has finished all of the SJM universe, and then maybe even like some of the other like finishing Iron Flame, we could even do like a one series versus another series and talk about our thoughts on that as well, which I think could be really cool.
I would love to do a Throne of Glass versus ACOTAR.
Ooh.
That would be very interesting.
I love that.
like it.
I love that. I love them both so much. I think, yeah, that would be a great one.
Yes, well, this was
We need a Showdown part 2.
Yes, Showdown part 2.
Stay tuned, people.
Yes, this is the first of probably many crossovers to come. So stay tuned, listeners, and thank you for joining us, and hope you guys are having a great day. We will see you either next week for each of our respective podcasts or next time we cross over.
Stay smutty.
Thank you so much for listening. We know that this wasn't the episode you were expecting, but we still hope that it was highly enjoyable. Do not fear. Episode 1 of season 3 will come out next week. Please follow us on Instagram at BookBoundPod and on TikTok at Book Bound Besties. You can, as always, send us an email at bookboundpod@gmail.com if you've got any questions, comments, or feedback. Please rate this podcast and leave us a review because it'll help other people find us, whether you listen on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, you name it. We'd appreciate any type of positive feedback. It always makes us feel really, really warm and fuzzy. Actually, we got a message from somebody in Germany.
Yeah.
So our international listenership is thriving. Thanks for spreading the word, sharing us with your friends, and growing our little bestie community as much as we can. So with that said, let's get to reading.
Let's get to reading.